Welcome to the How to Identify Reliable Sources video of our Data and Information Literacy series. In the last video, we discussed where and how to search for suitable information. However, how can we tell if this suitable information comes from a reliable source we can use in our academic work? To explore this question, this video shows you why evaluating information sources is important and how to classify the source. So, let's get started. You can find anything on the internet, from gossip to fake news to well-founded research results. There is no enforcement agency that controls what is distributed on the World Wide Web. The web doesn't distinguish between right and wrong information. Therefore, each internet user is responsible for deciding whether to trust a source or not. Especially in an academic environment, credible, reliable, and valid sources are key. The quality of the information source influences the quality of the results we achieve in our courses. Therefore, if we use unreliable sources, we get inaccurate and unreliable results. In the worst case, this leads to decisions based on incorrect information. But how can we distinguish good sources from bad ones? Generally, sources, known also as literature in an academic field, can be classified into three categories: white, gray, and black literature. The classification is based on the source's credibility and the expertise behind the literature. What does the classification mean? White literature includes formally published documents such as books, journals, conference papers, and scientific articles from established publishers. White literature stands out for its high credibility, trustworthiness, and expertise. If we use this literature for our own knowledge acquisition and research work, it provides a strong foundation for our arguments, thesis, and position. But what makes white literature so credible? First, the who and where. Ask yourself who wrote the literature. A high academic reputation and prestige of the source play an important role because the hurdles for academic publications are very high before literature is published. The content is closely monitored through a rigorous peer review process. This quality assurance process is done by independent subject experts in academic fields, ensuring higher expertise and credibility. Examples of established publishers are renowned organizations such as the United Nations, which publish reports, institutions such as government agencies and research facilities like universities, which also publish reports and proven theses, prestigious conferences, recognized journals, and scientific magazines. Second, the goal and reason. Even if we believe we have come across a recognized and renowned source, take a critical attitude towards the publisher. The fact that the literature comes from conferences, academic journals, or scientific magazines gives the impression we're using a good source. However, there are also dubious publishers and bogus conferences that publish literature only through payments. In this case, expert reviews are often missing, so the user must check the content's credibility. Such literature is not white literature. The goal of white literature is to freely disseminate and represent valid, credible research findings to a broad audience. Therefore, free and independent research can only be realized when it is built on previous free and well-founded research. While white literature is considered the gold standard, no literature is completely error-free. That is why white literature is also often defined as first-tier gray literature. So what do we mean by gray literature? Gray literature are publications considered to have moderate credibility, expertise, and external control. In contrast to white literature, this means that a rigorous expert-led peer review before publication wasn't done. Gray literature includes, for example, publications under compensation, such as from conferences or companies that publish paid studies, annual reports, newsletters, or advertising. Non-governmental organization studies, news articles, and Wikipedia entries or Q&A pages. What about other media formats? Not only texts, but also interviews, presentations, videos, and images can be part of grey literature if there is evidence of moderate external control and expertise. In this case, check whether the authors have sufficient knowledge, experts participated, and a peer review took place. Another check is to look at the references and citations. Are they listed in the bibliography, and if so, where did they come from? For example, a presentation, interview, or podcast with a recognized expert with publications in reputable journals is much more credible than a self-proclaimed expert with little experience. All other literature belongs to the third category, black literature, or third-level grey literature. This includes sources with no or too little external control or an unknown expertise level. Often, such sources represent personal ideas, concepts, and opinions not based on facts and research. These include magazine texts, blogs, presentations, catalogs, videos, vlogs, emails, tweets, comments, and posts. The less control is taken by external peer review, the more control is up to you, the user. Also, chatbots and AI systems such as ChatGPT, Google Gemini, and Bing Create belong to the lowest category. AI-generated results are not peer-reviewed, and thus we have to extensively prove that the results are credible in our academic work. In any case, you need to be the expert to critically evaluate and cross-check the information. In summary, what did we learn? Suitable information does not always come from a reliable and trustworthy source. We must critically evaluate sources and listen to intuition, alert for red flags. Technically, literature can be classified on the basis of credibility, the expertise behind the literature, and external control. Literature ranges from white and light grey with high expertise and peer review, to grey with a moderate level, to dark grey and to black literature without any external control and proven expertise. This classification is a helpful guide for you to distinguish reliable from non-reliable sources. Especially in academic fields, relevant, reliable sources are essential for any research. Ultimately, we must listen to our intuition, evaluating and deciding whether to trust a source. That's why we must always use our brain and ask ourselves, is the source not only suitable, but also trustworthy?